Welcome to my channel. Today we're going to do something very different. I am going to tell you the entire history of the Spanish monarchy from the very beginning all the way to the present day. Now, this is typically the kind of video that would be long and dramatic and exciting and full of big battles and betrayals and intrigue. But today I want to try something different. This will be a calm, slow and soothing narration designed to help people relax and fall asleep. No fast-paced editing, no sound effects or background music, just my voice and your imagination. When you think of ancient Spain, you probably think of fierce warriors riding around on horses and clashing their swords together. And while there was certainly some of that, it's also important to remember that these people were regular folks who ate regular food, wore regular clothes, and lived in regular houses just like you and me. In 711 AD, the Visigoths controlled most of the Iberian Peninsula. They were a Germanic people who had converted to Catholicism. The Umayyad Caliphate conquered them and pushed them back to the northern corner of the peninsula. There they established the kingdom of Australia. It was small and weak, and it looked like the other Christian kingdoms of Europe, like France and England, because they both had lots of forests and farms and rivers and were ruled by kings and queens. They weren't really an empire because they didn't have much territory, wealth, or power. In fact, at one point they didn't even have a queen. Asturias was eventually replaced by the Kingdom of Leon, which was replaced by the Kingdom of Castile and Leon after they married into another local dynasty. Then they got into a massive fight with the Portuguese people over this little slice of land down here called After many years of fighting, King Alfonso VII of Castile and Leon succeeded in conquering Algarve and establishing the first truly powerful Spanish kingdom since the days of the Visigoths. He then set his sights on taking back the rest of Spain. During his reign, he built up a huge army and started to push south. He captured the great city of Toledo in 1085, and soon after he pushed all the way to the Mediterranean Sea, when Alfonso died in 1157. 3/4 of the Iberian Peninsula was under the control of Christian monarchs. The only significant Muslim holdouts were the Almohad Caliphate here in the south and the Tifa of Granada up in the northeast corner. Castile continued to grow in power and wealth throughout the 12th century. King Alfonso IX liked to throw lavish banquets and attract famous scholars and artists to his court. During his reign, Spain became one of the most culturally vibrant places in Europe. In 1212, the Christian monarchs finally managed to conquer back the rest of their homeland at the Battle of Las Navas de Toledo. They divided the Muslim survivors into two separate caliphates, one in the north and one in the south. Both would eventually fall to the Castilians within the next 40 years. Ferdinand III of Castile married the heir of the Kingdom of Aragon in 1269, uniting the two most powerful Christian kingdoms of Spain into one. The following year, the newly crowned King Alfonso VI launched a campaign to conquer the Emirate of Granada, but it went poorly and he was captured by the Moors and locked up in a palace for 5 years. Eventually, he was ransomed back to Spain, where he finished the conquest of Granada and made it into a vassal state of Castile. Throughout the late Middle Ages, Castile remained a relatively quiet and peaceful place. There was no war, and the economy boomed due to trade with the Americas. Granada was allowed to keep its wealth and power as long as it paid tribute to the Spanish crown and didn't get into any fights with anyone else. Across the sea, a new empire was being forged. Christopher Columbus, an Italian explorer sailing on behalf of the Spanish crown, landed in the Bahamas in 1492 and kicked off the age of exploration. Within a few decades, Spain became the largest empire in the world, stretching from the Americas to Africa and Asia. This caused a lot of problems back home. The king and queen had to deal with rival nobles who didn't like how they were gaining power and wealth. They also had to deal with religious dissenters who didn't like how tolerant the Spanish crown was of other religions. This created a powder keg of resentment and hatred that would blow up in the face of the monarchy during the 18th century. But for now, the Spanish Habsburgs were living large in their fancy new capital city of Madrid. They built palaces and hosted parties and generally enjoyed life while the rest of Spain was busy getting pillaged by pirates and the Dutch. The Spanish Habsburg dynasty ruled over a vast and unruly empire. They fought wars against the French, the Dutch, and the English, and they struggled to maintain control over their colonies in the Americas. By the end of the 17th century, Spain was a shadow of its former self, weakened and exhausted and in desperate need of a new direction. Philip V, the last Habsburg monarch, died in 1700 without leaving a clear heir. This triggered the War of the Spanish Succession, which nearly tore apart Europe. The French wanted Philip's nephew, Louis XIV of France, to become King of Spain, while the rest of Europe wanted to put Philip's daughter, Maria Theresa, on the throne instead. After years of fighting, the French were defeated, and Maria Theresa's son, Philip V, took the throne. He founded the Bourbon dynasty and began the process of rebuilding Spain. During the 18th century, Spain experienced a cultural and intellectual awakening known as the Spanish Enlightenment. Thinkers like Gaspar de Tingay and Francisco de Goya questioned traditional authority and called for reform and change. Their ideas would eventually lead to the Spanish Revolution of 1808. Napoleon invaded Spain in 1808 and installed his brother Joseph on the throne. This sparked a long and bloody conflict between the Spanish people and the French invaders. The Spanish monarchy was in danger of being overthrown, but just when things were looking darkest, a young man named Rafael del Riego y Feria came to the rescue. Del Reo was a military officer who had been imprisoned for criticizing the king. He escaped prison and led a rebellion that forced the Spanish monarchy to grant constitutional rule. This ended the absolute power of the Bourbon kings and established Spain as a constitutional monarchy. Spain entered a period of political instability known as the First Spanish Republic. There was a lot of fighting between liberals and conservatives, and neither side could agree on what to do. Eventually, the monarchy was restored and Spain became a more stable and prosperous country. Queen Isabella II commissioned a series of ambitious building projects across the nation, including the beautiful neoclassical royal palace of Madrid. She also worked hard to improve the lives of her people through education and healthcare reform. During the mid-19th century, Spain experienced a period of economic growth and modernization known as the Spanish economic miracle. New industries sprang up across the country, and Spain began to look less like a poor, rural nation and more like a modern, industrialized power. This economic growth led to political reform as well. In 1874, Spain became a constitutional monarchy once again, when Queen Regent Maria Cristina of Austria granted limited voting rights to men. At the turn of the 20th century, Spain was still a poor and declining power. Its colonial empire was gone and its economy was in sharp decline. However, it did have one thing going for it: a strong sense of national identity. The Spanish-American War of 1898 had been a humiliating defeat for Spain, but it had also awakened a sense of pride in the Spanish people. They began to identify themselves as Spaniards rather than as subjects of the king. This new sense of national identity would lead to the Spanish Civil War in 1936. General Francisco Franco led a military rebellion against the democratically elected government. The Spanish monarchy was abolished and Spain became a dictatorship. After Franco's death in 1975, Spain began to transition to a democracy. The monarchy was restored in 1975 with Juan Carlos I taking the throne. Spain joined the European Economic Community in 1986 and experienced an economic boom in the 1990s. Today, Spain is a prosperous and peaceful democracy. King Felipe VI is the head of state but has little real power. The Prime Minister, Pedro Sanchez, is the head of government and he is responsible for running the country. Spain faces many challenges today, such as high unemployment and a deep political divide, but these are not unique to Spain. Every country in the world faces similar problems. As you drift off to sleep, know that the Spanish monarchy is in good shape. The king and queen are well respected by their people. The royal family is rich and powerful, and Spain itself is a thriving democracy. It's been a long journey from the Kingdom of Asturias to modern-day Spain. There has been war and peace, famine and plenty, joy and sorrow. But through it all, the Spanish people have endured. They have built great cities and explored distant lands. They have fought for freedom and democracy. They have suffered persecution and war. But they have always endured. As you drift off to sleep, know that the Spanish people are strong and resilient. They will continue to face challenges in the future, but they will overcome them. You can count on that. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please leave a thumbs up and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Thanks for watching.